Recently, we had the news that FedEx is going to at least partially put down its NASCAR sponsorship, if not totally, for 2025. Of course, with the sponsorship that has lasted 20 years in this sport and one that is iconic, up there, I think, with the ranks of Jimmy and Lowe's, Jeff Gordon, and DuPont. Dale Earnhardt maybe and GM Goodwrench. One of the longest lasting partnerships in modern NASCAR history. That ending is a big deal, and it should send shockwaves throughout the NASCAR fan base, as well as maybe the industry itself. And I think this is something that you have to look at from a couple different perspectives. First off, one of those is the fact that, as reported, at its peak, FedEx was paying Joe Gibbs Racing $25 million a year for a full-time sponsorship. Of course, this was when Denny Hamlin was having basically just one sponsor all year with maybe a sports clip deal sprinkled in every now and then. And it's something that obviously all of us know, racing is expensive. And with that, you're going to have these big sponsor deals. But with that, you also have to look at what's changed since this deal was signed in 2005. When this deal was signed in 2005, the CEO of FedEx, which was the CEO for a long time, was close friends with Joe Gibbs. After all, they even sponsored the Redskins Stadium. I don't care what you say, they're still called the Redskins to me. And with that, you also had Joe Gibbs go back to coaching. They remained friends, and the sponsorship remained a long-standing feature of this team for that time. But now that there is new management, there is new ways to spend that money. And both the NASCAR deal and the football deal look to have either already come to an end, like in football, or will come to an end. And it is natural. Many will look at it and say it's natural that you're going to have sponsorship end in NASCAR with different ones. Deals can only last so long, and with that, you're going to always have sponsor turnover. But I think one like this, one that's so long-standing, and one that I think has paid off in many ways with an iconic brand, is something that should turn heads. And it's part of a growing trend that I think people should look at as well. Look at some of the other sponsorships that have either changed, diminished, or completely left the sport in the last 5 to 10 years. For instance, Anheuser-Busch, they still sponsor in NASCAR with Busch and Busch Light on like Chastain's cars now, but at one point they had their number one brand in NASCAR with Budweiser, and Budweiser sponsored everything. Lots changed since then. You also look at a lot of other ones. You've seen different, for instance, changes with the way that spending is for the military. It's why the National Guard had to leave the hood of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car about a decade or so ago. You look at some of the other ones that have come and gone through that time with diminishing sponsorships or gone, like Hooters, for instance, off Chase Elliott's car. When you look at Axalta, who is, while sponsoring multiple Hendrick cars, went down in sponsorship a little bit. And you see this over and over again. And I don't think this would be nearly as alarming if it was just a driver or car sponsorship deal. If it was just that, well, then I think you could look at different solutions. But I think that this is partially a overall NASCAR issue. Look at it like this. Geico, for instance, a long-standing sponsor, both of a car as well as NASCAR itself, is stepping away. And it looks like Xfinity might be doing the same thing after a short extension of their deal next year, if reports are true. And with that, you're having, again, two long-standing sponsors leaving the sport. Not a car, the sport. And that is a big difference. And I don't think I'd be too worried about this if it wasn't heading right into a brand new broadcasting and television deal. And when you look at that, you have to think of the sponsorship's mind on this. What is FedEx thinking? What is Geico thinking? What is Xfinity thinking? Well, Xfinity, I think, might actually have a better go at it if the CW gets their act together. It's available in more houses than basic cable is across all of America. And with that, I think that's why they probably would do a 1 to 2 year extension deal to see if maybe it was worth it, if the ROI was better with this new deal. But on the Geico front, being a premier sponsor of the NASCAR Cup Series, when you look at the FedEx front, being a huge sponsor in the NASCAR Cup Series, well, you have a new deal that is a huge mystery. And in a really bad economy right now for sponsorship deals, you really don't want to be gambling with how you spend your money. The NASCAR deal has way less network races. Instead of what it is today of around 20, give or take, it is instead going to be closer to 9. So you'll go from over, or at least half of the schedule being on basic network television to now having a quarter of the schedule on that. A lot of it's going to be on cable, TNT, you got FS1, USA, and then you've got the prime races, streaming, another brand new thing to NASCAR, and I kind of understand why they would want to spend 5, 10, 20, 30, $100 million, depending on what the sponsorship is, for mainline NASCAR sponsorship. I get it. I don't hold it against them as much as many fans will. And I think that with that too, you have to look at the direction NASCAR is going. NASCAR has just re-upped with the majority of the teams the new charter deal, and it looks like those teams will get paid a lot more money, at least based on the reports of the lowest paid teams. If that percentage holds true, which is about from $5 to $8 million a year for them, so a pretty good chunk, if that holds true with the rest of the NASCAR Cup Series, they'll get a pretty penny out of this. But if you look at it also when it comes to the cost cutting, the saving, well, NASCAR is cutting costs when it comes to at-track action, different things that teams have to spend, and it's not necessarily doing any difference whatsoever. Partially because of the next-gen car and unforeseen costs, but on top of that, you have to look at the fact, too, that, well, they're just going to put that money elsewhere. Why would you not ask for more money and then basically just put it towards R&D or put it towards different things at the track that NASCAR isn't cutting? There's no reason for the teams to ask for less money, so there's no reason for the sponsors to stay if they're paying as much or more than they're paying now to be on the cars. If they, for instance, had a cost cap or something, and instead of having to spend 25 to 30 million to sponsor a car every year, you had to spend, say, 10 to 15 million, I think you'd see, one, a lot of sponsors stay, maybe even extend their deals to more races, and I think, B, you would see a lot of returning sponsors and new sponsors come to the sport. But when you're constantly having to jack up the prices, there's no reason for them to show up with a limited ROI. But that's just my thoughts on it. I figured that I'd kind of just speak off the mind and the heart on this one, and now I just kind of want to know what you think. Do you think that this is just a natural progression, or is this indicative of a bigger problem? Let me know down in the comments below. Well, all right, leave a like in this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support, and be sure to watch NWP tonight on Eric Estep's channel. We'll talk all about this at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So until then, have a good one.